Alright everyone, so we said before that the wretch is going to move in an interesting way. And that's because rather than just follow the wizard around like the ghost does, or the monster does, what the wretch is going to do is the wretch is actually going to try to only sneak up on the wizard from behind. And the rest of the time, the wretch is going to try to get out of sight. It's going to try and avoid being in a position where the wizard can zap him. So here's the basic model. So the wizard is looking one direction or another, and we can imagine that there's a sight line coming from the wizard, and that's exactly what he's looking at. It's also where exactly he's aiming. And it corresponds to the last direction button that you pushed. So in this particular image, it means that the last thing that you pushed was the right move cursor, the right arrow cursor. So he's facing right. And now we can split up the world into 4 quadrants. So there's above the sight line, there's below the sight line, there's behind the wizard, and then there's just these blank white areas here which we can think of as being beside the wizard. Now these will change, of course, as the wizard changes direction. So if you press the down and right keys, then the wizard is now facing down towards the corner, and relative to the line everything's the same. So behind the wizard is now opposite to the line. That's before, and then there's above the line and there's below the line. And then if the wizard is looking directly down, well, this isn't really below the line anymore, but we'll just keep the same phrasing. And then there's above the line, and then there's behind, and so on. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get the wretch to behave differently depending upon where in this diagram the wretch finds himself. So if he's above the sight line, he's going to flee this way. He's going to try and turn and run this way. That's because if he turns the other direction and the wizard fires a zap of lightning, then there's a higher chance that the lightning is going to hit him. So he's going to try and turn away from where the wizard is shooting. Similarly, if he's below the line, he's going to flee away from where the wizard is shooting. If he's behind the wizard, he's going to try and run in for an attack. And if he's in these areas here, he's not really going to do anything. So to control this, we're going to create a variable, and it's going to have one of 4 values. Either the value is behind, which means that the wretch is behind the wizard, or the value is clockwise, which means the wretch is situated on one side of the line of sight, and it's to the wretch's advantage to turn clockwise. Or counter CW, which is short for counterclockwise, which means he's on the other side of the line and the advantage is to turn counterclockwise. Or beside, which means that he's in none of these positions and he doesn't really need to do anything. So let's begin by creating that variable. So make a variable, and it's for this sprite only, and we'll call it location. Okay, so now we need to create a block that is going to fix the value of that location variable. And that's going to take quite a bit of work, but we'll get it started in this video. So make a block, and this block is just going to be a block that is going to help the wretch to figure out where he is with respect to the wizard. So we're going to call it, where am I? Now let's map out the structure of this block. We're going to grab 3 if-then-elses. And so the whole thing's going to be an if-then-else. And then one's going to go in the first slot, and one's going to go in the second. So this one's in the second, and then this goes in the first. And that gives us 4 possibilities, forming a kind of tree. So the first branch is, hey, is it this or this? And then within the first branch, is it this or this? And the second branch, is it this or this? And these are going to correspond to our 4 different areas around the wizard that we saw in the graph. So in the first one, we're going to set location to counterclockwise, or counter CW as we're calling it. And then in the second one, we're going to call this clockwise. We'll set it to clockwise. So you can see that this first if-then here is going to check whether or not the wretch is in the cone of the wizard's sight line. So basically, is the wretch in front of the wizard within the cone of vision where he's looking? And if he is, then we just need to decide which of the 2 spaces he's in. Is he to the left of the sight line, in which case he needs to move counterclockwise, or is he to the right of the sight line, in which case he needs to move clockwise? So you can guess what these other 2 are going to be. They're going to be the 2 regions that are outside of the vision cone. But otherwise, it's going to be the same kind of thing. So we put one of these in here, and it says, if he matches this condition, which we'll write later, then that must mean that he's behind. And then if we match this location, then he must be beside. Alright, that's the easy part. The hard part is figuring out what to put in these slots. So these are going to have the conditions that tell the wretch where exactly he is on the screen. And we're going to figure out what those are going to be in the next video. So I'll see you there.